and welcome to another episode of the Marco Podcast.
A show dedicated to the realness of organization and entrepreneurship. This space was created for every woman who needs motivation or inspiration to get organized and to keep going after her dream. I'm your host, Angel J. Sit back and prepare for valuable tips, resources, laugh, and much more. If this is your first time here, welcome and thanks for joining. If you've been hanging around for a while, welcome back, and I hope you brought a friend.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. Today, I am talking with Julie Zaruba Fountaine, MBA and MS. She is a well being specialist and change management expert with the passion for empowering individuals to overcome challenges and take decisive action. With over a decade of experience, Julie has guided organizations and individuals in transitioning from overwhelming stress to productive engagement. She holds advanced degrees in change and leadership, as well as health, nutrition, and exercise science. Through her work as a consultant, public speaker, and facilitator, Julie aspires to create a thriving world for all. When she isn't working, she enjoys exploring the great outdoors through hiking, biking, and paddling. So let's welcome Julie. Hi, Julie. How are you?
Hi, Angel. Thanks for having me. I'm great. Happy to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we get started?
No, let's dive on in.
All right, let's do this. And while I'm thinking about it, because I always forget to ask, where are you from? Where am I talking to you at?
Sure. I am located in Duluth, Minnesota.
Okay.
So I am in northern Minnesota in the United States. If you look at Minnesota on a map, there's Lake Superior, and I'm right on the tip of Lake Superior. So I mentioned in my bio paddling, and Duluth is a great outdoor city, and you have fun on the lakes, but also hiking in the North Woods as well.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you. So, Julie, how long have you been a well-being specialist and how did you get into it?
Yeah, it's hard to believe when I get asked this question. I have to think back. It's been over 12 years now that I've
Wow.
been either well-being wellness coordinator or well-being specialist, and I got into it way back in college. My second year of college, a man by the name of Daniel Buettner came to our school, and he talked about research he was doing for National Geographic in partnership with National Geographic about blue zones. And blue zones are areas of the world where people live to be over 100 years old, but
Oh,
not
wow.
only do they live to be 100 years old, but there's a lot of them. So there's a lot of centurions in these certain areas. And he was asking the question, why? So now Blue Zones has become there's been multiple books, there's websites, there's blue zones throughout the United States that are cities that are adopting these models. But when Daniel Buettner came to my university, he was just at the beginning of this journey, and I felt really inspired. I had no idea that that could even be a job. And I was
Right.
really inspired. The term wellness was new to me, the term well being was new to me. And I just thought, I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but that looks really interesting to me. And then fast forward 6 years, went through grad school, did a corporate wellness internship, spent some time in research, and then eventually came back to being a wellness coordinator at an institute of higher education. And now I'm a well-being specialist in healthcare, as well as owning my own business where I work as a consultant, keynote presenter, and facilitator in the areas of change management and well-being.
Okay, awesome, cool. I've never heard of zone areas before, so that's
Yeah.
really interesting. And I mean, you said there are several people that live to be over 100, but now that you say
Mhm.
that, I have been feeling like I've been seeing recently more articles where it's like, a person who lived to be 110 just died,
Mhm.
or a person, 115. I'm like, people live to be 115 still. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I'm wondering now if they're from those like blue
Yeah.
zone areas, because
Yeah.
like it used to be like this phenomenal type of thing that you rarely ever saw. I'm definitely gonna have to look up
Yes.
blue zones.
And I will have to say, it's not without its critiques. So, of course, anytime you put things in the world, there are some critics. So, some of the
Right.
criticism are in some of these underdeveloped countries, they might not have as accurate birth certificates. So, it might be not as accurate as we think it was. However, I will say the lessons that we've learned about eating whole foods, moving your body, being in community, finding your purpose and meaning are really lessons that I think we all can agree are really meaningful and important. So
Oh, yes.
just if you look it up, take that note that there's definitely some criticism about the way the data was collected.
Okay. I mean, like you said, there's criticism about everything. So,
Yeah.
what is creative problem solving and how can it help with personal and professional growth?
When I think about well-being and when I think about growing as a professional, growing as a person, there's this foundation of understanding that we have in the world that things are how they are and there's one way to look at a situation and that means there's one way to solve a situation, and I would like to just challenge that. And when I work with organizations and individuals, I really feel like it is part of my job as a wellness professional to encourage creative ways of solving problems. And that means thinking about problems differently and changing our mindset so that I can't tell you how many times I've heard people are stressed, they're too busy, they're feeling overwhelmed, and they're burned out. Some of that is due to the environment that we can't change. And then some of it is due to our own mindsets and the burdens that we place on ourselves. And so challenge yourself to think about problems creatively can really help open up your mind to address issues that are constantly coming up and will continue to come up. So just thinking about at the core, creative problem solving is similar to creative thinking. It's about intentionally seeking out new insights and thinking about different ideas and looking at information in a little bit different a way. What I like to think about it is I visualize myself taking another person's perspective of how would I challenge this? How can this be viewed differently? And just imagine myself in a different mindset. And that helps me to expand my mind to overcome those barriers. So it really is about changing those patterns that have been ingrained in us to think about there's more than one solution, that the traditional approach that we've been taking might not always be the best approach. There's a phrase VUCA, the
Hmm.
VUCA world. So it's volatility, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And the fact that we live in this VUCA world, that there's going to be challenges. So this creative approach gives us an opportunity to handle the complexities of and ambiguity of this world.
Okay. When you were saying that, there's more than one way to solve a problem or to, get to a solution, it just, I don't know why this just popped in my head, but it just made me think about like when you're driving somewhere or, if
Yes.
like, if you're using the GPS, I'm sure it's happened to everybody. Like you go and the GPS takes you one direction to get there, but then it takes you a whole different direction to get back home. Or even if you and someone else, even if you know where you're going, you may have one way to get there and someone else may have another way to get there. It doesn't mean that the GPS was wrong, that either one of you were wrong. It's just that there's more than one way to get to your destination. And that's perfectly fine. And it's okay. One person may not want to be on the interstate. One person may not like back roads. It's just
Right.
little things like that, so I definitely think that just thinking outside the box sometimes and realizing that it is okay to have a difference of opinion or to think a different way, like it's perfectly fine. So
I love that imagery. Yeah, that's great. Absolutely.
thank you. And so and you mentioned it, so would you say that one of the challenges of like creative problem solving is that we do just have those patterns kind of ingrained to us that okay, this is the way that it's supposed to be done, this is the only way that it's supposed to be done? Do you think that's one of the challenges that we face with it?
Absolutely. I think the time pressure oftentimes doesn't allow us to have that space to be creative. And then the second time is the phrase, because we've always done it that way. It's pretty
Right.
common. I've worked in several organizations, but on several teams, and there always seems to be the individual or the team of individuals that say, when you think about, well, is there any way that we can think about this a little bit differently? Like, what are we missing? And the response is, this is just how we've always done it.
Right. Right.
Is the response, and kind of dismissing maybe even the opportunity to think about something differently because there's no need to think about it differently in their perspective, that it's working fine. And I would say there's that opportunity for potential and growth, and it might not be working fine for everyone.
Right. No, I that's so true. And even I feel like it happens in our personal life as well, because
Mhm.
you grow up like doing things one way, or this is how it's done, and then you get older and you're like, well, why am I doing it this way? Or you find another one, you're like, it can be done that way, or oh, it's okay if I get this instead of getting that. So it is a hard habit to break. And sometimes I feel like you just get so in a routine of doing things that it's just habit to you now, and it's second nature. And it's not that you maybe don't necessarily want to learn a different way to do it, but you're just like, I know this, like I know the back of my hand and I can get it done quicker. But that doesn't mean that you're doing it the most efficient way.
Right, right. And it's not our fault. We have cognitive biases and we have these neural pathways that develop. So the cognitive biases are in our brains, and I think at one point there was over 180 named cognitive biases. So you've got a lot of challenges to come over of that the way our brains work, that there's going to be this bias towards certain information or how we consume information or how we portray information. And knowing that is the first step to overcome some of those biases, like you mentioned, and really thinking about if you've been doing something some way your whole life, think of how ingrained that is, that neural pathway, because that keeps on getting repeated and repeated and repeated again. And so breaking from that, give yourself some grace in that it's going to be challenging. But the first step, you're on the right path if you're listening to this podcast, first of all. So yeah, you can overcome that though.
Right. I agree with that. And my husband and I have kind of talked about it like a little bit like impersonalized and stuff, like just stuff that you grew up buying, like, okay, you have to get this, or you have to
Mhm.
get that. And then it's just like, do I even like that? Like, I'm not even sure if I, if I like it. Let me try something different. And so, like I said, just give yourself grace. And it does take a little bit of time. And like I said, it's a habit. So you have to kind of train yourself, I guess, not to just automatically make that your go-to. Even if it is, be willing and open just to try something else and see. You never know, you may like it, you may end up loving it and be like, where has this been my
Right,
whole life? So,
right,
yeah.
right. The question to always ask is, what if this works? Like what is the worst possible thing that could happen, and what's the best possible thing that could happen? And if you can live with consequences of whatever the worst thing is, most people that works. For some people, they're able to go deep, pretty dark places pretty quickly. Then I wouldn't recommend that exercise for you. But if you are someone that is more optimistic of a personality and less pessimistic of a personality, then if you're a little more optimistic, that exercise definitely works.
I'm laughing because I've had this question posed to me, I feel
Sure.
like quite a lot just in the past couple of weeks. I go to a dark place sometimes.
Yeah, if you do, just know yourself. Know
Yeah.
yourself and know that is not a good question for me to ask. I need to think of a different way
Right.
to think about this. Just yes, it is
Yeah.
not appropriate for everyone in every circumstance.
I can definitely go to a dark place sometimes. I think now I do it more so lookingly because I am like, being more positive and doing more positive
Sure.
things. But
Right. Then follow up with the question, is this helpful and is this true?
okay,
So if it's not helpful and it's not true, like, yes, there may be a possibility of that, but it's not the most likely
the most
possibility.
likely.
So
Ye-
then it's not very helpful then. So
No,
then
it's
we
not.
dismiss it.
Yeah, usually my possibilities aren't, the most likely to happen. They're like way, way out in left field. And I have
Mhm.
a very vivid imagination. I'm an only child. So as an
Yeah.
only child, you learn to use your imagination and you learn to, entertain yourself.
Sure.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll say stuff to my husband sometimes and he's like, you watch way too much TV, but it could happen. So okay,
Yeah.
I'll do better.
Yes. Is it
So
helpful? Is it true?
yeah. So you work with a lot of like entrepreneurs and small businesses. So
Mhm.
what are some common challenges that you see amongst female entrepreneurs, and what can we do to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, being an entrepreneur myself, and also then trying to find my niche as an entrepreneur, finding out the entrepreneur that I'd like to be has led to a lot of conversations with other female entrepreneurs. Over the past couple of years, I have noticed some themes. So with Empower Possible, my business, I have these things called the three empowerments. So I always try to break things down into the three empowerments of self awareness, your social networks, and then your systems that are a part of your day-to-day life.
Okay.
So first, starting with yourself, if you, as a common challenge with an within the female entrepreneurs that I engage with, and also for myself, is thinking about that self-doubt, thinking about that self-worth, thinking about having a negative money mindset, not giving myself time to really even understand what that identity of entrepreneurship means to me compared to what it means to someone else, and letting other people determine what I should be as an entrepreneur. Those were the things that I struggled with at first, and talking with other people as common struggles, really not knowing how to think about yourself as an entrepreneur is where I'd start, is exploring that. And thinking
Mhm.
about, do you want to be a lifestyle entrepreneur? Are you into social entrepreneurship? Or do you want to scale up and be a large business? Or do you want to stay being a small business and a small entrepreneur? And doing some research about these different types of entrepreneurship, and then thinking about, what do I want my day to day to look like? And then follow that path, and don't let yourself get swayed by those outside influences. If you have found what's working for you, and what's helping you reach your goals, and what is giving purpose and meaning in your life, then that's the type of entrepreneur that you should be. With myself as a lifestyle entrepreneur, I can get challenged with entrepreneurs that are focused solely on scaling up. And if that's great for you if that's your goal, but that isn't my goal. My goal is to be very intentional with the connections that I make and the working that I'm doing, because I do have other outside interests, and I want to be dedicated 110% to each project that I'm doing. And so therefore I am pretty picky about the things that I do with my business. And that is what works for me. Might that change 2 years from now? Yeah, it could change 2 years from now, but right now that's what I want to do. And so letting yourself think about entrepreneurship in multiple ways is the first thing that will help overcome a lot of challenges that you face. It will help you overcome your self-doubt, because you've already defined for yourself what that means. It will help you get over that fear of being stuck. Don't let that fear of being stuck let you from getting started. And it will enable you because you have this goal in mind. So it's really important. The other challenge that I see that is challenging is thinking about, who am I to be an entrepreneur? That again, that self-doubt and self-worth, and just thinking about, all of us have overcome challenges in our lives and have had to figure things out, and have had to think about these outcomes that might be, and think about how you've done that in the past. Think about all the things that brought you to where you are today. And if you're able to figure out then, you'll be able to figure out this. So just remind yourself of, what is your why, get that definition down, and then learn to trust yourself. And really that comes from reflecting on those choices that you've made that have made you who you are, and how that's shown up, how you've been able to show up for yourself in your own life. And just know foundationally what it comes down to. And this can take a lot of self work and reflection, and can be very challenging for a lot of female entrepreneurs, because you tend to be go getters, you tend to be really passionate, you tend to have a lot of ideas. And sometimes that comes from a place of self-doubt and having to prove your worth. Maybe you grew up in an environment where you were praised for always doing something, winning the gold medal, getting the grades. And so maybe that's been reinforced over your life. But when it comes down to it, knowing that you are enough because you are, will help you overcome a lot of those challenges that are faced. And that doesn't mean it's going to stop your drive. It won't stop your drive, because you'll be doing the work that you want to be doing, but it really will keep that drive coming from a place that will help you reach your full potential, and not get you into that dark place where you're feeling shameful because you're not doing everything perfectly, or you never think that you're doing enough.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of female entrepreneurs can definitely resonate with that. I know myself, I can. The other
Mhm.
day, I was doing a workshop, a webinar for that someone had asked me to do, and I was literally like freaking out before it. Like, I don't know why I was freaking out, but I was just like freaking out. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing? Can I do this?" Like, it was just all going through my head. And then I got on there and it went great. And after I got off, I was like, what is wrong with you? Why were you doubting yourself? Like, you had it, you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, but it's like that just little that little feeling, it just creeped in, and I'm like, okay, so we definitely all go through that. And again, I think it's just remembering to give yourself grace and knowing that like you have this, and just having the confidence in yourself and believing in yourself that you can do it, and that you're more than capable of doing it, and like you said, that you are enough.
Yeah, and I, as a well-being specialist, I have those moments too. I'm human. But I have a little bit of a toolbox to be able to help with those things. So when I find myself in moments where of doubt and of feeling discouraged or feeling angry or sad or whatever it is, there's a mindfulness technique called RAIN, and I didn't invent it. It's been something that's been around for a while, but it's about recognizing what's going on. So you, before that event, it's like, I'm nervous, I'm scared, I am feeling not worthy, whatever it is, those thoughts that you're thinking about it. Like, let yourself just feel that present moment, and then look at your surroundings and try to take in your surroundings, what what you're feeling. If you can say your feelings out loud, it helps to name your feelings, um, if you can, and then just try to remove yourself from the situation. So allow yourself to observe your own experience like you were watching a movie. So just
Okay.
let the thoughts and feelings come out and the sensations come, and then just let them go. Let go of that judgment that you have. Like, it's okay to just feel how you're feeling, and then you can tell yourself, like, this is how it is right now, and just observe. And then you can investigate those feelings and think about, what are the emotions that I'm feeling, and where are those feelings coming from, and how are these feelings experienced in my body, and then reflect on what that needs to, for example, what does it feel to feel acceptance? What is it that you need right now? Forgiveness, love, or belonging, whatever it is. Like, what would that be like to have that? And then to nurture. So, to be kind to yourself and your experience, and give yourself that comforting message that says, I love you. You are okay. You are enough. You know what you're doing, you have the knowledge to get you there, and whatever it is, and just breathe through that exercise. And it sounds like a lot, but once you get into the habit of doing it, it happens pretty quickly. And
Mhm.
just, if you need, I have it printed out because it's that's how important
Mhm.
this is to me. I have it printed out, I have it on my desk, and that's a process that I continue to use because it is really helpful. If you use mindfulness now, it's a great tool. If you're learning how to practice more mindfulness, is a tool that you can build up to. It's just something that's really helpful for a lot of people.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's a really good idea. Just as much as you can talk yourself out of it, I guess per se, you can talk yourself into it too. And so you kind of got to catch yourself when you feel yourself getting ready to talk yourself out of it and talk yourself into it. So thank you again so much for sharing something that
Yeah.
you do to kind of ease the situation and make yourself feel better.
Mhm. Mhm.
And something else that you mentioned earlier was, I think it was when we were talking about the blue zones, you talked about like having community and,
Yeah.
having people around you. So how do we build meaningful connections as people, as entrepreneurs, just in general? How do we build meaningful connections?
Yeah, those meaningful connections, again, I'll refer to the 3 empowerment: self, social networks, and systems. They're fundamentally important to who we are. That sense of belonging is essential for our well-being. But how do you feel that sense of belonging? How do you know where to go to get that? So first, you have to think about and understand yourself. Like, what are my genuine interests? You may have grown up in a family that loved to loves sports, for example, and you have no interest in playing team sports, but you were forced to do that because of your family. And so maybe you think, that those should be what my interests are, even though you really know deep down inside they're not. So be open with yourself and think about, what are your interests, and then think about, what do you value and
Mm,
what brings meaning to your life. And going into that second empowerment of social networks. So, who in your social network also has some of those similar values and similar interests? And I'm not talking about religious or political views or values here. I'm talking about other things. You can have genuine connection with people with different religions. You can have genuine connection with people with different political views.
I
I'm
agree.
making clear that this is about similar interests and similar values, and that cross party lines, and that crosses religion. It's really about values like kindness and honesty and accountability, things like that. And then think about what systems you have in place that support meaningful connections. So, online interactions, like the one we're having right now, is great. It can be a catalyst for building connection, but more and more of the research is showing that in-person connection is really what is going to help make meaning and bring meaning to that connection. So you can't always meet everyone in person, and online forums are wonderful, but if you can meet in person, that's a preferred method. And I have very strong relationships with people that I mostly meet online, and we only meet once or twice a year, and that's in person once or twice a year, and that's been great. But really try to set up a system where you can meet in person, doing the things that you have interest in, talking about your values, talking about things that you enjoy, people that allow you to live into your purpose and support you. That really is going to be helpful in setting up those meaningful connections. And it's tough. Just know that it is tough sometimes to make and maintain those meaningful connections. And it's not impossible, and it's completely worth it. So just pursuing your interests, just be open to those new experiences and taking the initiative. You got to do your work and the other people have to do their work in order for it to make it happen. So just showing interest in others, being authentic, and it does take vulnerability. You can really deepen those meaningful relationships.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I agree. I think that, between social media, people are already kind of leaning more towards just online type of relationships. And then we had COVID. And so that
Mhm.
was the only way to connect was online. And so I think between the two of those, it's making it harder for people to want to do in person things or to get together with people in person because they're like, why, when I can do it virtually. But like you said, connecting with somebody originally virtually is great, but I've connected with like so many different ladies from recording with podcasts. There's so many of them that I'm like, I want to meet them in person. Like, I want to
Right.
hang out. And, I'm like, we're all in different locations scattered around, but I'm like, I want to meet them all. So I definitely think that, if you can and you do have the opportunity to be able to meet with somebody face to face, to definitely do that and to build that connection that way as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, exactly, and it does take more vulnerability to show up in person, and, it's worth the risk.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Julie, thank you so much for joining me today and chatting with us. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we go?
Yeah, I would just say if you are an inspiring entrepreneur, if you're someone that wants to incorporate these things, give yourself permission. Don't wait for someone else to give you permission. A lot of times have conversations with women and other people in this space, and we wait for someone else to say that it's okay. We wait for permission to act, to dream, to start our own journeys. And while we're waiting, we're halting the flow that we need to create something beautiful and to contribute to this world. So right now I'm going to say I give you permission to begin and to turn your one day into day one.
I love it. Thank you. And how can everyone connect with you if they would like to?
Yeah, I would love to connect with your audience. It's been great. Thanks for having me. Empowerpossible.com is my website. I'm also on LinkedIn, Julie Zaruba Fountaine, or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Empower Possible.
All right. And we'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes. Well, Julie, thank you so much. I have enjoyed chatting with you today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, Angel. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Modco podcast. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and learned something from it. Be sure to share this episode with a friend, family member, colleague, or anyone you think will enjoy it. Make sure you hit the follow or subscribe button. And if you love the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcasting app. That helps others to find us and gets us listed in other show recommendations. So you all know that I run on coffee, and so does the show. If you'd like to buy us a coffee, you can do so by clicking on the link in the show notes. Thank you so much, and chat soon.